Welcome to the Manage Self Lead Others podcast. I'm your host, Nina Sunday. Welcome. And today my special guest is Matt Lovegrove with a bachelor's degree in economics and an MBA. He's a partner with EY's People Advisory Services, focusing on talent development, deployment and retention. A former chair of APMP Australia, the Association for Professionals Winning Business through proposals, bids and business development, Matt is an expert in strategic account management. In this episode, we're going to discuss where the workplace is heading in 2021 and beyond, and how organisations can stay ahead of the curve. Welcome, Matt. And COVID is the most disruptive event in the last decade. Businesses have to be prepared for the challenges ahead and reimagine the workplace of the future. So there are some lessons learned from the last 12 months. What are some of those lessons, Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Nina. It's a really great question. I think your starting point is right in that the world has changed. It's changed, in my mind, irrevocably. We're not going back to the old normal, despite people hanging on to that and maybe wishing we could. But that doesn't mean it's all bad. And I think it's given us an amazing opportunity to really step back and rethink the relationship between work and life, that old chestnut around work and life balance. But even if I could say it at a broader level, I think it actually is one of the few moments since, dare I say it, the Industrial Revolution, where the whole notion of work and the paradigm that exists between employer, employee, union representative body, etc., could really be changed for the better. So I'm quite enthusiastic. I live in Melbourne, and I've just found out today we're locked down for another 7 days. So, that's not great. But as I said in
the
no, thank you. And look, there's lots of worse places to be given what's happening around the world. But again, when you step back from the immediacy, I guess, of some of those negative points, the opportunity to reshape work, I think, is fantastic. And there's an interesting new tension playing out, which is employees saying, actually, I would like to redefine the notion of a working day or a working week. I'd like to be flexible with my start and finish times. I'd like to sit with my colleagues when we do our work. It's flipping the dynamic around. So there will be winners and losers out of this. Let's be really clear, like most big changes, in society. But for those who say, to your point, well, thank you, you've had some flexibility, but it's back to 8:45 to 5:15, Monday to Friday, working in a traditional office. The reality is, and our research that we just recently released showed globally that 54% of employees will quit. They will leave their current employer if they're not offered some form of flexibility going forward. So that's why I say that, going back to the old normal, there'll be people that will go back to what resembled more closely old normal, but not completely the same. But the vast majority, 9 out of 10 people in our global survey said, I've had a taste of flexibility. The genie's out of the bottle, Nina, and I'm not going back. And I'm a classic example. I've got 2 young boys, one a teenager and one just about to become one. I used to be out of the country 1 week every month, traveling in my role through Asia. I haven't been on a plane now for 16 months, like most of us. And I've actually been able to get more involved in their school lives. And much to their chagrin, I pack their lunches most days, and I pick them up. Now, I'm blessed by that, right? And I now don't want to give that up. And thankfully, EY is an employer who said, that's fine, you can do that. So long-winded answer to your question, yeah. If people put their head in the sand and just say we're going back to normal and that was a bit of a nice blip, the jury's out. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not I can't guarantee this. But again, from the data that we've collected and the people that I speak to, people need to reimagine, a new way of working. And I think that's, as I said, quite exciting, because done well, people are saying that their productivity improves, maybe perversely to some people, but their productivity improves. And their ability to be more creative and problem solve in a different way leads to benefits for the employer.
And it is problem solving in a different way, because some people talk about, the water cooler mentality where, when you're actually in an office and you just happen to have a loose conversation with someone about what you're working on, and they'd say, oh, I've got some data on that. So that kind of serendipity that occurs, but surely that can still happen in a hybrid workplace, do you think?
Yeah, I do, Nina. And I do want to say, like, that is a really important point. And I've had my own moments of serendipity in my working life where it's taken place. So I guess there's a couple of things. One is, there are some people that want to work completely hybridly or completely remotely. at that end of the spectrum, you still need to be aware that you are going to have to go and meet your colleagues. You're going to have to meet with customers. You will need to spend some time together because we are creatures of social habit. We do actually enjoy, most of us anyway, enjoy contact with other people. So you do need to do that. But yeah, I do think you can still create those moments of serendipity, but it's contrived, if you will. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but you have to go out of your way to be more mindful about creating those moments. And so, I spend more time now just having sort of 5 or 10 minute check-in conversations with my team across Asia than I would have ever done pre-COVID. And in most cases, we don't actually talk about work. We'll just be checking how they're going, and then it might be oh, by the way, I wanted to share with you something that comes out of it. So I
That's
think it can
lovely,
be done.
Yeah, because one of the earlier episodes is with Sarah Derry from Accor, the hospitality organisation, and they have implemented what's called a heartist culture. And that part of their culture is to proactively talk about one's life for a couple of minutes before any meeting starts. And it seems to me
Interesting.
that by making it that's what we do around here, then the managers that think, oh, we're just here to do a job. We're not here to find out what your kids are doing at school. Well, they're actually going to find out that really we are here to know a little bit
That's
that's
right.
appropriate about people's lives, because we're not robots, we're humans.
Yeah, and this experience as well, as much as I've got a background on my screen here, but the fact that we are inviting our colleagues into our homes in most cases, into our personal lives. Normally people make comments about the bookshelves behind me and things like that. I agree. I think it humanizes us, and the days of being petrified when a young child is dancing in the background, that it still happens, but I think I think we now see that as a positive. And I know some people still get uptight about it, but again, it humanizes us. And again, I think that's a real positive that's come out of this.
And I think some of the videos that have gone viral really are quite
That's right.
charming
That's
and
right.
and lovable and personable. So I don't think there's anything to fear. You're absolutely right. Um, so are there any things that companies should do to maintain this esprit de corps, a sense of culture? What can you suggest?
Yeah, look, there really are some things here. And I think if I was going to just talk about some of the concerning parts that came out of our research as well, was that employees were concerned about their managers and leaders' ability to actually manage effectively in a hybrid world. Something like it was actually 62% of our respondents globally said they weren't, completely confident that their immediate manager or leader could continue to lead them and manage effectively in a hybrid world. Now that's quite a high number, right? And again, I think to your point, it talks to some of the generational elements in leadership ranks and roles, but I also think it talks to mindset. And then the one that really disturbed me, and this goes, I think, to your point about culture and behavior, the one that disturbed me was an even higher number. 72% of respondents globally said they felt that if they weren't in the office more than they would like to, that they would be overlooked for job opportunities, career opportunities, and promotion. So, i.e., if I'm not outside my manager's office or in the cubicle next door, I will get overlooked. Now, to me, I don't get too serious too often, but to me, this is one that I find it's an indictment. It's an indictment on us as managers and leaders. So, long-winded answer, I guess, is that we all need to be investing in our managers and our leaders, helping them understand some of these elements we've just talked about, that it is okay to be more human. It is actually a positive to invest a little more time in your people, to plan the serendipitous moments, and to go out of your way not to appoint people into project teams or engagements or whatever it might be, the work you're doing, just because they're the people that you either always go to or the ones that are literally in line of sight. And I think that's an interesting one to break. And for us at EY, that's been, even pre-COVID, that was something as an organization we were working on, because we form and disband teams multiple times a day depending on what you're doing. But there was a subconscious bias in many people that you'd always go to the same people because they're dependable and reliable. And so we already had a program that was designed to try to break that. And I think it's been a positive again for us in the new world, because it is, you have to think about a bit more who you want to use. So I think it's, again, that planned, it's equipping our managers as much as it's an indictment, the research. I think equally it's an indictment on our overarching leaders, that we haven't necessarily been investing in those skills, particularly over the last 16 months. We've had some time now, and again, unfortunately, many respondents are saying they're not seeing that their organization is making investments to lock in these positive features for the long term.
Well, you've nailed a couple of things there. Number one, you can't just assume that leaders are going to just pick up the new skills, some sort of formal training and reading the right literature is going to help empower their skills. But the other thing is about visibility. It's that sometimes it's the vocal extroverts that get noticed, and yet you've got very strong talent with people that are perhaps less visible, more introvert, but maybe deep thinkers. And so it seems to me that one of the things I talk about when I'm talking about leadership is psychological safety, says you create a vehicle for everybody's opinion to be heard. And so as a manager, you have to go, I've heard from these 5 people, but there's 3 people over there I haven't heard. I need to proactively ask them for what they think. And would you agree that it's about being proactive, about making sure that the invisible ones become more visible?
Nina, I love that. I agree. And I think this is where we're all learning. So again, even on these sort of Zoom calls, right, or Teams calls, I always come on with my camera on, and I'm happy to leave my camera on. But I notice that some people don't. And I've seen some organizations set a rule that says you must have your video on, your camera on. Now, I think those blanket rules can be quite damaging, because for some people, they don't like to be on camera all the time. And so, again, not recognizing it as they've got their camera off because they're off playing golf or, making a sandwich. They might be, but generally they're not. But that's how they prefer it. And when they want to say something, they'll switch their camera on. So understanding that. And then, yeah, to your point, looking for feedback through other mechanisms. The beauty of these platforms now is that you can run instantaneous polls. So sometimes people are not willing to pipe up vocally, but are very happy to provide their thoughts through polling. So again, just 2 quick examples, but I think, again, we've all got to get used to using the technology in a way, to your point, that straddles that dynamic between the extroverts, people like me, quite honestly, and the introverts, and understanding that there's different ways that they draw energy and how they want to engage.
So anybody listening, managers and experienced and aspiring managers listening to this, they're going to find that if they don't evolve and become more agile to embrace the hybrid workplace, that may find that they've got team members with itchy feet. What proactive behaviours do you think can managers do? I know that's what we're talking about, but is there anything else we haven't yet mentioned that managers can do to make sure that individuals want to stay?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, Nina. And I think there's managers, and I think there's also the role of HR. So maybe just to unpack those. So for managers, yeah, look, people are wanting that connection time. It's come through in a whole range of studies, our own studies and others, that people are looking now for that, not just the meeting time, right, where you might have 4 or 5 or 10 or 12 people in a meeting, but the one-on-one time with their manager. So one of the things that we've been trialing at EY is the Microsoft Workplace Analytics tools. So it's all anonymized, it's all metadata, but what you can start to look for are patterns. So you can see, for example, when was the last time a manager actually had a one-on-one phone call or meeting or a chat like this with one of their direct reports. So again, it's not to spy on them, but if there are particular managers that aren't good at staying connected, you can start to have a proactive conversation with them about the reasons why it's important to do that. Out of that as well, and I know people get scared of Big Brother, but it's anonymized. It's not at an individual level. But if there's work groups that their work weeks have really blown out, they're working much longer, they're working harder, there's more meetings, there's more emails, they can be early warning indicators using, again, data and tools that we didn't have that long ago to not be the solution, but to be the canary in the mine. And then I think, to be honest, in the Australian market, we're going to see a period of pretty significant workforce turnover. I don't see there's a way of avoiding it. You've got some industries that are in the doldrums. You've got others who cannot fill roles no matter how hard they try. We've got our borders up, so our usual go-to of skilled migration to cover some of the skills gaps is not there for the short term. And you've had wages growth stubbornly stuck below 3% now for 5 years. So to your point about itchy feet, I made that comment in another call, and some of my North American colleagues didn't know they thought I might have been talking about tinea. It was quite funny.
Oh, I see. That's an Australian word phrase.
It must be, but it resonates with me. So I think there's also a point that you can do all the right things, but there is an element, particularly in Australia at the moment, I think we've got a pressure cooker situation where, we are seeing people offered 20, 30, 40, even 50% higher salaries by other organizations for the same roles. And you can do all the things in the world. You're probably not going to stop that, because on top of the money, to your point, I think a lot of us have had a 16, 17, 18 months now of hunkering in and doing the right thing. And it's a case of the grass does look greener. So I
Yes,
think that's
yes.
I think that's there. And then on the HR front, if you don't mind, I think so. That's the manager's role. I think going back to where I started, there's a role for HR now to, if I dare say it, I don't think there's been a better time to be in HR or people, provided that the function can move from being transactional and reactive into a forward posture. And so again, looking at some of those tools that can help to data mine and to draw out the insights and join the dots and proactively go to managers or leaders and help them think about how they're managing their people. Working through this whole piece about hybrid work. Again, hybrid work is not a one size fits all. The use of the word hybrid means you're going to have very different perspectives on this. So again, how do you get on the front foot and start to design your workplaces and your work styles for that? I think it absolutely is the place of people in HR. And then finally, driving new forms of engagement. I think we've all been over-polled and over-surveyed, once or twice a year about engagement. Again, good philosophies, good ideas. But again, now's the time, I think, to change it up as well. So I see that the people function, the HR function, can really be that clutch point, the connector between, dare I say it, management, leadership, and people, and really start to be that avenue, that voice, I guess, for employees, and starting to find the ways that work for all parties. Because again, this is not about just saying employees have said this, we should jump. It is actually about finding the right dynamic for your business, given your market and your customers.
Well, yes, HR, human resources, has such a pivotal role to play, and perhaps never more so than now. Um,
Correct.
I'm going to ask you to send me some of these tools. The one you mentioned earlier, we'll put it in the show notes. What was it again? Microsoft's data
Microsoft's
analytics.
Workplace Analytics is what it's
Yeah,
called, Nina. Yeah, I mean, it's just one tool, but obviously being Microsoft's, it's quite well known, and
yeah.
it integrates in. Again, I'm not here to promote that per se, but
No,
we have chosen to use that ourselves. And again, it's early days, but we're finding better ways to, as I said, to start to look for indicators. It's not to say that's the be all and end all, but it's another form of canary in the mine, if you will, to help our managers and leaders look for hotspots. If someone appears to be working too long or too hard or
that's
too
right.
often out of hours, or not working, because that could be a sign of either poor mental health or well-being, or there might be something happening. So it's not to say there is a problem, it's just to give people some data to say, look, you probably should go and have a chat to Matt or to Nina, because something seems to be possibly going on there. So yeah, I think again, it's a new way of using the plethora of data lakes that we have, and the amount of data that we have that goes unused, Nina. Again, I think this is a great opportunity to use it in a really positive way.
Yes, Matt, in the webinar that I saw you deliver, you made reference to employee assistance programs, EAP, and
Mm.
I do believe it's a term that's recognised around the world. What's your view of the importance of EAP, having employees having an opportunity to find an independent counsellor if they want to talk through some mental health issues that, coping issues that they're dealing with?
Yeah, and I'll put a disclaimer out there, Nina. My wife's a psychologist, so we have many conversations about this. But no, look, jokes aside, I'm very passionate about men's mental health in particular. I think, as we all have known, it's been a topic that's not been discussed. Yeah, the ability to have access to a third party that's available to talk to you, I think is just, it's very hard to put a cost on that. Someone will try to, or a benefit, but it's such a vital tool. And again, some of the data that I've seen is that the demand for these services over the last 16 months have, in some cases, gone up 30, 40%. And so I think what it's done, and what I'm most excited about, and again, another client that I was talking to, and I obviously won't name them, but a very heavily male dominated blue collar workforce, they said, we've been running the Are You Okay campaigns, the check in on a mate stuff. And they've had, incremental benefits, but they said they've been blown away. So again, since February last year, they've seen the access and use of their employee assistance program go up by 28%, and are seeing blokes, and that's the language they use, are seeing blokes that they thought would never have a conversation about how they're doing, now checking in on other people proactively. So I
Just for
think
our
it's
overseas listeners, Australia bloke is an Australian term for I think, a manly man. Would that be
a
right?
manly man. I think that's exactly the right term. Yes, I got to be careful with my colloquialisms, Nina. But yeah, so I think that's important. But equally, I think that the balance then as well is that's not the panacea either, right? And so again, at EY, what we've implemented, and again, not saying we're perfect, but we've actually implemented now mental health first aiders. So just as we've had
Oh,
physical first aid, physically qualified first aid people in the old world of a physical office, and if someone had an accident, they'd come and tend to them. We're now accrediting people to be mental health first aiders. So sometimes, particularly at the moment, it might take you a week or 2 weeks to be able to get to talk to an external employee assistance program psychologist or counselor. So we're now putting in some people who at least can triage in the short term and be someone that they can go to. So again, I think it's important just to think about those different elements. So, it's not okay, in my opinion, to say, oh, we've got an EAP program, so we've done all we need to do. I think again, this that's great. Don't get me wrong, and I would encourage those who don't have that to really look into it. But I also think there's some new things that employers can do themselves to just, again, as I said, provide that a sort of more immediate first aid. And again, we're not suggesting that these people become professional counselors or anything else. It's within the realms of what makes sense, but it's just, again, something immediate. Because for those of us who have been through it, I've suffered from anxiety in the past myself, and I'm very happy to share that. If you're having a bad day and your anxiety is peaking, you can't wait 2 weeks to talk to somebody. You need to speak to someone fairly quickly. So I think finding some intermediate approaches is really helpful as well.
mm. Look, I love this idea of having mental first aid accredited people in the workplace that people know they can go to. What would do they? What background are you looking for with those sort of people? I mean, obviously high emotional intelligence, but what would they have nursing in their background, or
Yeah,
some sort of a qualification first aid of some sort, or
yeah, potentially. I mean, you are looking for people that have that sort of nurturing personality, Nina. But again, across EY, although most people would probably see us as an accounting and finance and consulting business, we've got more organizational psychologists in my business unit than I think many large organizations have. So those people in particular that have a sort of psychology background, look, that's helpful. But we're finding people come up from different parts of the business that you wouldn't necessarily suspected. So it's more about, I think, to your point, it's the style, it's the ability to be non-judgmental. And as I said, we're really clear about this. We're not expecting them to be counselors. And if on having a conversation and giving them some sort of frameworks and tools and ideas, if it's become clear that that person's in much more of a serious situation, then of course that gets escalated, very quickly to the right mental health
mm,
practitioners and professionals. But yeah, it's having a positive impact so far. It's early days for us as well, but we're seeing that it's having a positive impact. And I think some of the ideas of stigma about, well, could I talk to someone in my own business about this? I am again positively surprised. I must say that again, that seems to be less of an issue. And again, that's such a great thing for society, quite frankly, that
oh yes.
after so long of trying to remove the stigma around mental health challenges, that again, maybe perversely, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but maybe perversely, COVID-19 has again accelerated that and could be a long-term positive.
Did EY issue a report that the listeners can access?
Yeah, look, we have Nina, and it's publicly available, so we can make that link available
I'll
to
put
you.
that in the show notes. Has it
Yeah,
got
that'd
a
be great.
name or?
Yeah, so it's called Work Reimagined. Is our name. We think future of work. We used to use that ourselves, and I'm not trying to be smart, but we think the future's already come. So we shouldn't talk about the future of work. We're now talking about Work Reimagined. So yeah, look, again, 16,500 respondents globally, 23 countries where we had respondents, 16 different industries that were covered, multiple generations. It's, if I dare say myself, it makes some really interesting reading. And what I said it does pull out is that there are some consistent trends globally. Again, that the genie is out of the bottle on flexible working, and no matter whether you're in Malaysia or Japan or in the UK or Australia, that's what people are saying. They want to have some flexibility. The intentions to either stay or quit if they're not given that, again, remarkably similar around the world. But then there are some really different cultural nuances that come out when you look at Japanese business culture, for example, versus the Australian culture or even the North American culture. So yeah, I'd encourage people to have a read through it. It draws out some insights, and we've tried to give people some practical frameworks, I guess, or tools that you can use yourselves to think about, if you were to ask your employees these same questions, how do you think they would respond? And have you thought about some of these areas? Because again, I think the other risk here is that people with all the best intentions are looking to make policy changes and to make stipends available, or to invest in a whole range of potential home office equipment. That interestingly, our survey says some of the things you might think that employees value, they don't. And some of the things you might not have thought they value, they do. So it's even just a very practical way to, if you're looking at changing your policies and what you're doing, have a look at our report, because it might give you some ideas as to where you might want to spend your dollars and get the right return.
Well, just in closing, Matt, I just want to say every manager should read this report, and every manager should be upskilling their own ability to understand how leading people, what the trends are. So have you got a favourite book that you like to, that you've read yourself, or that you like to refer people to read, that helps them with the leading of people?
Oh, look, there's many, but the one that first comes to mind, and I've just revisited again, is Lencioni's The Seven Dysfunctions of Teams. I'm not sure if you've read that. I'm sure you have, Nina.
Oh, I'm right into that one.
Yeah. So again, I think, and why that comes to mind is, I think, again, it'll be interesting to see whether Lencioni, I assume he's not dead now, but if he's
Oh, no,
not.
no. Patrick is coming out to Australia this year.
Oh, fantastic. I always get a bit worried when I name drop in today's world. But I wonder whether he might be looking to rewrite his novel. I think there's his book. I think there's an interesting approach to that.
I think he's got a new one coming. Our organisation actually has accredited facilitators in the 5 cohesive behaviours, according to Lencioni. And of course, every time I work with a team, I will reread his 5 dysfunctions of a team, just to prime my brain and sort of think about, what can go wrong with a team. He's really nailed it. So I'm really glad you mentioned that one.
Yeah, and so again, but I think again, why I say this, because there are some things that don't change, right? Going back to where we started, there's some common things that don't change. But again, I think as you look at the 5 dysfunctions and think about it in a new world, it'll be interesting to see how you might need to nudge that. So I think that's one. But to your point, there's a couple around emotional intelligence. I think more than ever in today's world, that is going to be the successful or more successful component of leaders. Those that are aware of their emotional intelligence, that are acting to build that. And as we said, again, sort of recapping, I think the ability to connect with people on a far more personal level, I really think those leaders are going to be even more successful moving forward. So I think they're the 2 areas that I would be recommending people have a look at, particularly if they're locked down like me. So we've got plenty of time on our hands.
Look, we've touched on so many important points, Matt. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us.
I've enjoyed the conversation too. So thank you. And good luck to your listeners as well. And I hope everyone stays safe.
Today, we've been speaking with Matt Lovegrove, partner with EY's People Advisory Services. And this is the Manage Self, Lead Others podcast. My name is Nina Sunday. I'm your host. And find Manage Self, Lead Others wherever you get your podcasts. And remember to subscribe, give it a 5-star rating so the world knows we're a terrific place to come and listen. Ciao for now.